Well, hi, I'm Neville Hobson. I'm in the UK, and I've got a review I'm about to do of a new smartphone that I acquired about a month ago. It's middle of June as I'm recording this, so middle of May. This one, as you can see, it's foldable. So this is the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 5G. We would call that Z here in the UK, but I'll stick with Z for the time being. And I've been using it for the past month. I'm pretty impressed with it, but I wanted to share some thoughts on what I think of it and whether it's worth getting. Let me start with the specifications. So it's a foldable 5G flip phone. It has dual SIMs, a nano and an eSIM, 8 gigs of RAM. The model I've got has 128 gigs of main storage. You can also get one with 256. There's no SD card slot, unlike many Samsung phones. So it's just the storage that comes with it. It has an octa-core Snapdragon central processor, Adreno GPU graphics processor. So as it shipped in mid-May, it came with Android 11 and the Samsung's One UI 4.0 interface. I've upgraded it, and indeed, when I first turned it on, it offered to do that straight away. It's now running Android 12 and the One UI 4.1. So in terms of size, showing it to you the way I did it probably doesn't do justification to it. It looks quite large though, nevertheless. In fact, if I compare it to this one, step back a bit, they look about the same, but they're not. Smaller, there you go, now you can see it. The one you see on the right, the larger one, that's the Z Flip. The one on the left is the Samsung Galaxy S20 5G. That was my phone before I acquired this. So open, the screen size 6.7 inches, full rectangle, dynamic AMOLED 2X, 16 million colors, 120 Hertz refresh rate, HDR10 plus, that's a video. So overall it's slightly larger than a Galaxy S22, that's 6.6 inches, and much larger than the Galaxy S20, that's 6.2. So it's a good half an inch wider dimensions all around than the Galaxy S20, and that's surely that certainly is noticeable. When it's closed like that, the front screen that you see is 1.9 inches, just under 2 inches, full rectangle, super AMOLED as well, 16 million colors, and as you can guess, it's half the size of a normal smartphone when it's closed. Gives you a rough idea, I suppose. I don't know whether it does actually, but yeah, maybe it does. So some initial impressions. This is a general quick review. I'll link in the blog post I'll write to embed the video. Links to some pretty good detailed reviews that I've read leading up to acquiring this about a month ago. And many of them, indeed all of them, go into considerable detail on the specifications. Worth a read if you're considering this. So mine are very general, based on my own usage and what I look for in a phone. Indeed, one of the what drove me to buy this. This I'll cover as well. So generally, what can I tell you? Excellent build quality. That's the first thing that occurred to me when I opened it. Is it's extremely attractive. Looks nice. It feels comfortable in your hand. It's quite a weighty feel to it, even though it's only I forgot actually, I didn't make a note of the spec of the weight. Less than a pound, that I do recall. So whether it's open or closed, it feels good in your hand. It's difficult to open it single-handed, although I could give it a try, I suppose. I'll put my finger there. That's open. So if I close it with one hand, it's difficult to do. I can just about do it. I tell you, I would not feel comfortable trying to open that with one hand. You need two hands. So it's impossible without contortions. I discovered that. Two-handed is good, reducing the risks of drops and damage, and that's something to consider with this. You get it from Samsung or wherever you acquire it. Your next thing, almost before you start this, is buy a protective case. I did that. The one I've got is a Samsung one. I don't know whether you can see that. It's got a carbon fiber look to it. I like the look of that because it matches my Dell laptop, which has got that kind of look. So the reason for it, apart from obviously to protect it, generally, the risk of dropping this is very high indeed. It is a very slippery device. It's beautiful in the hand. And indeed, Samsung phones typically are like that. I remember when I got the S20, this has got a protective case on. You have to take the case off and there's this gorgeous looking device, but my goodness, is it slippery. This is similar. And I think the risk is high when you're trying to open the clam, as it were, you'll drop it. So get a protective case that's got a good grip to it, like this does. If you migrate this phone from another recent Samsung phone, it's very easy and simple to move everything from the old one to the new one via Samsung Smart Switch app. That's what I did. You back up everything to your Samsung account, start up the phone, connect the two together, which is what I did with the USB cable, come back in 10 minutes and everything is over, no matter what you've got on your phone. The screens, well, you could be the judge of this. That's what it looks like, just like it is. And if I then start it up, there's the start screen, and that's the main home screen. Clear and bright, as you can see, perhaps vibrant colors. Hard to tell, I think, really, but they are. Both the main screen and the small screen individually adjustable for brightness, so you can have one brighter than the other. For this purpose, by the way, on this review, I've got the display set to be on permanently, not to go off, just in case you're wondering. You probably weren't, but there we are. The front mini screen, the 1.9 incher, is great for seeing up to 4 single-line notifications that you can scroll through or dismiss. When it's not doing that, it serves like a time and date thing. There's some other things you can do on there too that you can make display. Health information like steps and stuff like that. It's really good. If you've got a Samsung smartwatch like the Watch 4, I have one of those, this will all be very familiar. You also have a dot sign. I haven't got one. I don't have any new messages since I started doing this. That appears there, an orange dot, to let you know that you've got messages, and that is what you get on the Samsung Watch. The main 6.7-inch screen is bright and shows everything crisply and clearly. Colors are vibrant and blacks are truly black, rather than dark grey you see on some phone screens. Typefaces are clear and easily readable, and it's all customizable, of course. The phone comes with a good screen protector, and you probably can't see that except by the notch where the phone is. I can't actually angle it. You might be able to see the slight join where that is. That's fitted by Samsung, so you get that when it comes. That's essential to have this. I think, frankly, you'd apply that to just about any modern smartphone, because these are not casual purchases, so anything you do to protect the screen from scratches is a good thing. So opening and smoothing the phone and closing the phone is a smooth experience. You can't really tell that from a video, but when I do this with two hands, it is very smooth. It's a good thing because it increases your confidence in the build quality and that it works as expected. So open, close, it's quite smooth. Let's talk about the fold. That's probably a burning question you've got. It certainly was one of mine when I was considering this. The fold is quite evident when you look at the screen when the phone is switched off. So if I do that, turn it off, and do this, then you can see it, right? You can see that fold. It is quite visible. I'll show you in a minute why that actually doesn't matter at all, because it's when you look at the phone with the screen is what matters. It's barely noticeable. So let's take a look. So there's the the lock screen. Look at that. You can't see it. If I then go to the home screen, there it is. And one thing to me that was important was, so if I scroll like this, you can't really see it. Hang on, let me do it again. If I scroll, in fact, try that. That's Google News. So if I can scroll up and down, I mean, you don't notice it. You feel it with your finger, but you don't notice it. It's not visibly noticeable. And that, to me, is a pretty big achievement that Samsung has done. So it doesn't interfere with your use at all, that fold there. I got used to it very quickly. When I'm scrolling on the screen, your finger feels it as you're doing it. But it's not a distraction in my experience. It's kind of intriguing. When it's folded, the phone fits perfectly in any of my pockets. So I keep this in my trouser pockets when I'm walking around. Typically in my back pocket, I used to do with my other phone. This will go in any pocket, but it's half the size. Plus it adds greater thickness. And I think if you sit on it, as I've done a couple of times, on a soft seat, mind you, not a hard seat, it doesn't do anything at all. You could argue the same would be with a regular smartphone if you do that. It doesn't damage it so much unless you are sitting on a hard seat, I suppose. But this gives you greater confidence in it as well. In terms of use, battery is worth mentioning. 3300 milliamp hour battery. It's a little less capacity than comparable premium smartphones. Indeed, my S20, if I recall, has got at least 4,000. That said, battery life is good, although much depends on what you use the phone for. So my experience is that so far, at the end of each day, I'm down to about 40–45% on the battery. That's fine. I'm quite happy with that. And I tend to leave the phone charging overnight. It does wireless charging. So my current Samsung Fast QI charger that I use for the S20 is proving good value because it works perfectly with this. If I was using this phone for things like mobile gaming or getting into online places in the so-called metaverse or doing lots of video and audio, I wouldn't expect the device to last all day without having to charge the battery. And indeed, all that kind of activity, you'd be lucky to get half a day out of it. But I have to say, if that's what I wanted to use a mobile device for, then I wouldn't buy this at all. There are others with better battery life and also with specs designed for such uses. This is not one of those. But it's a great device. If you want to do all the things that many people typically do, and let's run them down, typically social networking, watch streaming video, listen to and watch audio and video podcasts, take selfies, do messaging, shopping, even make phone calls if people still do that, on a device that's powerful, performs very well, and is capable of making use of 5G cell networks and fast Wi-Fi. This is a good device for all of those things. It's also great to sync with your computer. Works very well with Windows 11 in my case. It works for Mac too, but I can't vouch for that. I don't use Macs. I have a Windows machine. Indeed, multiple, laptop, desktop, 2 desktops. In fact, it syncs with all of them. It also, very important for me, works very well indeed with Android Auto in my car, and as I expect it to, and it does. It works well, as the S20 does. It's very responsive. Everything from opening apps to navigating menus feels super fluid and fast. With a high refresh 120 Hz display, that makes everything buttery smooth. You really notice that when you compare it to a phone that until recently all phones were 60 Hz. It's half the refresh rate. So if you look at a phone, just scroll down, for instance, or pull down the top menu, rapidly scroll screens, you'll notice kind of a juddery effect most of the time. That is barely noticeable. But when you compare it to 120 Hz, you really do notice that. So this is great for that. Streaming high-definition video is smooth with great audio. YouTube, no problems whatsoever, not in my experience, nor with streaming from Netflix and Amazon Prime Video. I've only done that actually to show or to tell myself to discover how good is it on a phone like this. I tend not to do that kind of activity on a mobile device. But if you wanted to do it, you can. It's a good experience. Photos are good too, the ones I've taken. It's got twin 12-megapixel front cameras, one of which has widescreen capability. You might think that sounds good or not actually, because in fact what you see in many smartphones is similar to that. I'm quite happy with the pictures I've taken. They stand with good comparison with what I've been taking on the S20 over the past couple of years, although the S20 has 64-megapixel camera. So on the Z Flip 3, video shot in high definition is also pretty good. There's a rear selfie camera, 10 megapixels, and that's perfectly fine in my experience for taking selfies and casual shots like that. So that's a real quick initial impressions review of this device. Let me summarize the pros and cons, 3 of each. If I were to think about what are the 3 great things about this phone, I would say this. Terrific build quality, and this is at the leading edge of manufacturing a foldable smartphone. It truly is extraordinary what Samsung has done. For instance, I'm opening it up so I don't know whether you can see the hinges here, for instance, that let this phone, do this. This is glass, and it truly is amazing what they've done with this. So it's at the leading edge. There are other manufacturers now doing this, but I think Samsung owns this market segment for now. From what I've been reading, they are shipping more of these. This is the 3rd generation of this particular phone. The first one was definitely an experiment, very pricey. The second one, actually there wasn't a second one, they skipped a number. This is the second one. So this is now mainstream candidate. So that's the first pro. Second, excellent main display and the speed and smoothness of usage, whether interacting with apps or watching streaming video, as I mentioned. I think it's really, really good. Overall, the specifications are just great. What they've achieved with this is really good. What about the cons? Well, I do have 3 cons, and they may be deal breakers for you. For me, they weren't, although the first one could have been. But let me tell you what the first one is. Of course, you may have guessed it, price. So in the UK, Samsung's recommended price for this is £949, and that's a serious amount of cash for a phone. Although, arguably, there are other smartphones, including some of Samsung's traditional slab phones, that are that price and higher. I think the S22 Plus is higher than that, if I recall correctly. So for that price, it's actually a lot to pay for what you actually get. That's the biggest negative. That said, if you look around, and you can look around but not too hard, you'll find some seriously compelling deals. For instance, I've seen recently, a week or so back, on Amazon UK, vendors, third-party marketplace vendors offering this, indeed Samsung itself, 50% off. So that takes the price down to under 500, and that's for the 128 gig version. On that list price, by the way, if you want 256, i.e. double that, it's only another 50 quid to add that in. So price could well be the biggest barrier to anyone, unless your driver is simply that you've got to have a foldable phone now. Arguably, this is cheaper than it was. The previous version, that was, if I recall right, 13, 14, maybe £1,500. So it's gone down quite a bit. But those offers make it compelling, I have to say. The second con is the middling battery, 3300 milliamp hours. It's fine for general use. But if you wanted to kind of branch out a bit and do things like video recording, maybe you do want to experiment with some of the metaverse gaming that's emerging for mobile devices, then this is going to disappoint you when you have to charge it frequently. So middling. And the camera capability is a weak area with just that 12 megapixel lens. It's okay for general photos, but it ought to be better than that. So my overall verdict, having said all of those things, the cons, the pros and the cons taking into account, is 4.5 stars out of 5. It's nearly a 5. I think it might have got to a 5 if the price had been a lot less. But I look at it this way, that if you, and I got this, by the way, on a really good price deal. If you were looking at paying £949, I wouldn't recommend this at all at that price. But when you're getting down into the half that area, and maybe that's a drive for most other smartphones, it's a very competitive marketplace. You'll see deals galore, I'm sure. So 4.5 stars out of 5. A final comment on that. Until this phone, the Z Flip 3, you'd be right at the bleeding edge in buying a foldable smartphone. You'd be very much an early adopter. This one, though, shows it's ready for the mainstream, I think. Something we might see even more evolved with the Z Flip 4 that's coming very soon. So these price deals could well be a stimulus for that. Let's move the old models out while we prepare for the new model. And from what I'm reading, that's due soon, maybe in the next month or so. So look out for deals on the Z Flip 3. Even if the Z Flip 4 comes out offering better specs, not likely from what I've been reading. Although one thing I have been reading that's quite interesting is Samsung apparently have made further progress in diminishing even further that fold in the middle, meaning in terms of what you see and what you feel. But this device, the Z Flip 3, is definitely worth considering if you can find a good deal for it. It's an excellent phone. So there's my brief review. I'll have this video and a blog post. You can find that on my website, nevillehobson.com. It won't really say much more than this, maybe a transcript, or I might put my notes that I was reading from actually as part of the blog post. Any comments you have, let me know. If you've bought one and used one, tell me your experiences too, or share a video that you might have made. If you do go for one, then I think you make a wise choice, as I say, if you get a good deal. But there's plenty around, so good luck with your adventures with this.